Charities do amazing things for our society. They are the pillars that bring help to the disadvantaged right down to the micro level. At the same time, most charities never reach the full impact that they aspire to due to insufficient funding. Charities should just focus on the amazing work that they do and not get distracted by the lack of resources, having to beg for money all the time. Imagine a world where the money is not a problem for these well-meaning charities. The planet would certainly be a much better place to live in. The story of Southern Cross Kids Camps is a remarkable one because they broke through this exact norm of never having enough money in the charity world, and they multiplied their impact at rapid speed right across Australia. Within a few short years under the leadership of Peter and Sandy Lusk, they transformed the organisation from selling $2 chocolates and running local op shops to raising 7 figures through marketing campaigns online. Recently, Alex, our CEO, sat down with Peter and Sandy to chronicle this remarkable journey. They unfolded exactly how they went about running this campaign, and most importantly, the paradigm shift in marketing that is drastically changing young lives right across Australia. Here's Alex's interview with Southern Cross Kids Camp. We hope you enjoy.
So, Peter and Sandy, thank you so much for doing this. It's been amazing to walk this journey with you guys over the last 5 years or so, doing our part in marketing and helping you guys. But I thought this is a great opportunity for the world to know who you guys are, and also you guys as amazing people as well. So tell us, who are you guys?
Well, it's great to be here, Alex. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm the General Manager of Southern Cross Kids Camp, and this is my amazing wife, Sandy.
And I would be Pete's assistant, and we just help each other with lots of different things within Southern Cross.
And obviously we all know that she's the real CEO, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The real decisions get made over there.
That's right, and you're the GM who executes everything, right? So SCKC, Southern Cross Kids Camp, right? Tell us a little bit about the organisation. What does it do? A little bit of history as well.
Sure. Well, we interrupt the cycle of abuse and neglect in primary age kids primarily by conducting 5-day camping programs around the country. I suppose a little bit of history. We're about to step into our 20th year. So 20 years ago, we started with one camp down on the Mornington Peninsula outside of Melbourne. Our original founder, Carolyn Boyd, who was an amazing visionary and incredible leader. She got a few people on board, myself being one of those. And we ran a camp for kids who really needed it. And from there, the organisation's grown. Right,
okay. So 20 years ago it started. So were you guys involved back then, 20 years ago, or?
I was. Sandy, I don't think, was involved in the first camp.
No, I wasn't involved for the first few years because we had our own children, and so I was busy with our own kids at that stage.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Right. So obviously, so when you talk about kids camps, they happen all the time with various organisations, schools, churches, and stuff like that. What makes a Southern Cross Kids Camp so unique?
Good question, Alex. I reckon if there was one thing, it would be that for each kid who comes on camp, they have one adult buddy, we call them buddies, who look after them over the course of the week. So there's other staff apart from that. But while we do lots of amazing things on camp, and as you mentioned, there's other places that do that as well, I think it is the one-on-one that makes the unique difference.
Right, okay, so you get, 20 campers or 20 kids on camp, and you would have 20 volunteers.
Yeah, well, more than that actually. There's obviously the one adult looking after each kid, but there's other staff apart from that as well. So there's the camp director, the guys who run the camp. There's a sports coach. There's usually a nurse or a doctor because a number of these kids are on medication, and music person, storyteller, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's very labour intensive, but I think it needs to be to bring the outstanding results we get.
Wow, and that's really unique because you go to a school camp, is usually the campers who are outnumbering the staff, but it's the other way around, so these kids really get the personal attention. Sandy, I wanted to ask you, so obviously you guys are serving these abused and neglected kids who are mostly in foster families?
A lot of them are in foster care, yes.
Yeah, so how is this one-on-one approach, this personalized adult, spending that time with them. What sort of impact have you seen during those camps?
Yeah, that's another good question. So I think because they get that attention and the love that they really are craving, that it really does impact their life very, very deeply. So even if a child only comes on a camp once and they do get invited back again and again if they get that opportunity too, even if they only come once, we're amazed as they get older, because now that our camps are nearly 20 years old, we've got people who are in their 20s who come back to us and say, hey, your camp made such a difference in my life.
Wow.
So that just one-on-one attention, and even if the child's really acting up or they're not coping with something, if another child's upset them or whatever, by continuing to just love them all week, it makes a big difference to them.
That's outstanding.
I was just going to say, Alex, that I did an interview just last week, young guy who started a podcast, and he came on one of our early camps, and he only came on one camp, and yet he was able to say the names. He asked me, is Rainbow the Clown still involved? Is Tammy Tolman still involved? Wow. And he was able to say the names of some of the songs and all that sort of stuff. Wow. He came on one camp almost 20 years ago. It just had a profound impact.
Wow. Yeah. So that memory, I think, that goes to my sort of next point, that, I think, one of the taglines that you guys use in your organization is to give these kids a week of happy memories. Speaking to that a little bit, right? I guess what I'm trying to get to is, what are some of the profound moments, and there are heaps of them, right, that you've witnessed over the years that creates that,
I think one of the things that we do is we have photographers on camp. So at the end of the week, the kids get presented a photo album of their week. And, when you catch up with these kids years later, inevitably they'll have their photo albums. And we know of one girl or young lady now who we've kept in good contact with. She has these photo albums sit at the end of her bed, or on a bedside table rather, and she says if she's had a day that hasn't gone quite so well, she'll actually sit on her bed, she'll take them out and she'll go through, because it just reminds her of, as Sandy said before, that when she was shown unconditional love by people, just because she was of inherent value, and that sort of takes her to a happy place, if you like.
That's amazing.
So, that's just, it's one of the things.
What would be some of the moments, or one moment that you've remembered during your time with SCKC that has just given you such inspiration?
I think because we always have a birthday party on camps as well, because some of the kids don't often get a birthday party. Occasionally you have a child who doesn't even know when their birthday is. And it's a really exciting time for all of the kids, and they all get sung happy birthday for sort of the whole year together. And to watch the children actually get their present and open it and be so excited, and the whole atmosphere that's created for them and everything, it's pretty special. I
feel I just remembered a story that was on the Yarra Rangers camp where, and once again, because of that one-on-one, it's really fantastic, and also it's really difficult when it's the time for the kids to return back to their carers, because you're not always sure what situation they're going into. Sometimes it's really excellent and sometimes it's not so great. But this one little guy came up to his buddy and says, it's right at that time to go time. And he said, I wish I had a time machine. And his buddy was like, a time machine, really? Then he asked a really great question. He said, where would you go? And he goes, that's easy. I just go back to Monday.
Wow.
So he could get to do it all over again.
Wow. Tell us, how big is the actual problem in Australia, right? So of abused and neglected kids, because we prize ourselves as a developed country, right? Where, family values and whatnot, and we are indeed in a very lucky country. But tell us, how big is the problem? The problem is massive. Like, I think last year in Australia, or the figures from a couple of years ago, there was like 70,000 cases of abuse and neglect reported in Australia. And you just go, how can that be? Because I think because our country, for a lot of it, has some trappings of wealth, obviously. And the problem at times can get disguised.
But rest assured, it doesn't matter whether you're in Melbourne or Sydney or you're in outback Australia. The problem is there, and it's huge because there's so much dysfunction and distress in families that it comes out in a variety of ways, and one of those is children who get a really hard time.
Right. So with you guys, how much ground are you guys covering? How many camps are you guys running on a yearly basis at the moment?
Yep.
And how many kids are you serving in general?
Okay, so not counting this year because of COVID.
Yes.
Last year we had 16 camps around Australia. We would have had 700 volunteers.
Wow.
And we would have helped about 500 children last year.
500, okay. So how do you go about running an organization with 700 volunteers? You're talking an Olympic Games, or you're talking a mega church,
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you go about that?
Well, really, I think we've got a model that's actually infinitely scalable, which is awesome, because each camp is attached to a local church, and each camp has its own leadership. And so that means that, like for example, there's a new camp due to start in Mildura in a little over a year's time. So there's a great team forming up in Mildura. It has its own leadership there. That obviously come under the national organisation and get trained by the national organisation.
Yeah.
But will have its own Mildura flavour.
Yeah.
And it's attached to a church there in Mildura, and it looks to serve its local Mildura community. And so that's the case for, like here where we're filming today, just outside of Melbourne, Yarra Rangers Camp, attached to Discovery Church. And so most of the volunteers will come from the local area. There's always some that travel around and do multiple camps.
Yeah.
But the leadership comes from the local area and is there to serve the local community. So we see that as a model that can be rolled out right across the nation.
If you were to give someone like a leadership crash course, what would you?
The first thing when you said that, Alex, the first thing that occurs to me is relationship is key. And we need to build the relationships with our key leaders and hopefully be a reasonable example of that. And so therefore the leaders of the individual camps will do the same with their teams.
Yeah.
Don't shy away from the difficult things, because say running Southern Cross Kids Camp, for example, the directors are just incredible. I always say we have the best people, but the best people look for and do and achieve really great, difficult things.
Yeah.
And so we don't try and sugarcoat it. We say this is going to be really hard to do.
That is awesome.
And what happens is the cream rises to the top. So the best people put their hand up and say, yes, I really want to do a difficult thing. And they do it magnificently.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about COVID. Obviously, COVID has been a very difficult year. So speaking of, tackling difficult things.
Just
so what measures have you guys taken in place? Obviously, you guys are built around organising physical camps. Now that didn't happen in 2020. Oh, gosh. So what are you guys doing during COVID?
Yep. So our January camps ran as per normal because at that stage COVID wasn't around.
Yeah.
So for them, they had a great successful year with it being able to run their regular camps. By the time because our camps are always on in the school holidays. So by the time our April, Easter type holidays were coming, it was all changing. And so they were unable to run. And pretty much what we were able to do was tell all our leaders to be purposeful in the midst of disruption. So be creative and think about the sorts of things you could do. So every single camp all year that couldn't run has been able to do something really amazing with the kids.
Yeah.
So they've put together packs. Some did videos, and as a part of that, they got their camp T-shirts still for some of them, and some of the songs on the MP3 players and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then together as a group, small group, they went around and delivered them to the people or via the agency if need be, sort of thing. So, but they've been amazing examples of being able to have connection in the midst of disruption.
Right. So this tagline, be creative?
We did say initially, connection in the midst of disruption.
Yeah.
I think that allowed for the creativity, because we could have attempted to be prescriptive in what we wanted done, but we deliberately weren't. But it felt to me like the headline was that keep the connection in the midst of disruption. We've attempted to do that with our key leaders, and the way that, as Sandy's quite rightly said, the way that they've done that with the team, with the kids, it's just been remarkable. And by not being prescriptive, because we have the best people, because we totally trust them, what they do, it's going to be incredible. It was.
Wow.
And the kids loved it. But it's not the same as being able to be on camp.
Yes.
Of course, And so obviously with COVID easing and whatnot, so when would be your first camp? Are you starting?
2nd of January, I think, is our first camp. So 2nd of January, we'll be starting back down on the Mornington Peninsula. With Knox Camp, and there's 4 camps that are scheduled. 2 in Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales, in the January period. So we are really excited to be back, in the core business, if you like.
Now, running an organisation this size and running all these camps and whatnot obviously takes a lot of resources, in particular finances. Obviously, we've come a long way with you guys and helping you guys to build up that fundraising effort and whatnot. If you don't mind, speaking into that, when you first came on board 5-6 years ago, what was the organisation like, and now compared to now?
We'd probably got a bit stuck. Our amazing founder, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, Carolyn Boyd, she'd become unwell, and she did eventually pass away, which was really tragic. And I think that had caused a bit of the organisation had become a bit destabilised, really, and had probably plateaued out. As you know, if you don't intentionally lead something, it'll tend to drift, and we'd suffered a little bit like that. Still incredible ministry happening, if you like, but as a national body, we were just kind of bobbling along a bit, and so financially we were battling away. We were really just getting by, and that was about all. And so I suppose one of the things that we were hoping to be able to do was probably shift the culture and have us probably lift our eyes up a bit and look and see there's a bigger game out there. There's a whole world out there, and that I think we're going to love what we did, but they didn't know us. And we're probably just starting to get going in that regard as well. So we're trying to change some mindsets, I suppose, and also have our own mindset changed. And just, I think that's where you guys that's where C# helped enormously. And that works its way out in a whole variety of ways. So, it's not just the initial, when we first started to meet and chat, which was great, and still is, by the way, it works its way out in really unexpected ways.
When was the point that you guys decided to actually come on board to SCKC as an employee or as a GM? What made you to make that decision?
Well, I was on staff at Discovery Church and had been so for quite some time, but we really felt that our time was coming to a close in that regard, I think. And we did get to spend some time with Carolyn Boyd. And she actually invited Sandy and myself to take over the running of the organisation. So I suppose you weren't quite so sure for starters. It just took a bit of time to sort of work through that.
I don't easily say yes to things unless I'm sure. And so, we met with Carolyn and she invited us. And I think if I hadn't been there, Pete would have been yes on the spot. And I took pen and paper and said, let's tell me about what I'm in for here.
Great.
Which is really good, actually, because I think that is one of the strengths that help make us a really great team, is that, I'm probably more just intuitive,
spontaneous.
And spontaneous. Sandy works things out way better than me. So it's good.
So when you came on board, obviously you mentioned about the cultural shift and whatnot. What were some of the opportunities that you saw to take SCKC to the next level?
I think we saw the opportunity that we were able to, one of the things that runs in my mind a lot is creating like this pathway for a child to be able to come, first of all, involved with us as a 7-year-old kid, say, and be involved all the way through to being actually a successful young adult. And what we'd seen just the odd little glimpse of that, we could see in our minds that there was the opportunity to actually create a pathway of connection all the way through. And that's just sort of starting to happen. We wanted to be able to tell the Southern Cross story in a bigger way because it is an incredible story to tell. But we're the best kept secret, I think.
I was going to say.
And, and that's where, once getting in touch with you guys is helping us tell that story. And, even though we are 5 years into it, I think we're only just getting going in that regard. Yeah,
it's amazing to obviously witness the cultural shift and also the scale of growth. I think as a marketing company, we're always, growth oriented with our clients. It's just really rewarding to see the growth at scale. When you first came on board, you guys were running how many camps? And now 14, is that right?
We're running 10 or 11 and now it's 16.
Now 16.
16 camps, yeah. And obviously last year you guys did something amazing as well, going to the Indigenous communities and started running camps there. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
It's incredible, it's remarkable. It's so exciting to think that we might have a tiny part to play in the whole Indigenous space. That's just, we've sort of been invited to begin that journey, and we really don't know. We don't know a lot, but it's interesting because you speak to people who have been involved for 20 years and they go, well, we don't know a lot either. So we're trying to keep we're learning. We're learning as we go. You get invited into a space and you go there not as an expert, but you go there to learn. I would say the God-given talent that is in these kids is phenomenal.
Right.
And if we have an opportunity to serve in that space and be used to see some incredible success stories come through that, that would be a life worth living.
I remember last year we had a conversation on the phone, and you were telling me, if we didn't have the resources that we have now, we wouldn't be even thinking about going to Darwin and possibly Alice Springs next year and running all these camps and whatnot. I wanted to know, obviously we're going to get into the actual fundraising stuff, what you guys have actually done with fundraising with us. But I just wanted to for you to speak into that a little bit more, like all these extra resources, extra revenue, extra profit generated from various fundraising campaigns. What has it really allowed you guys to do or think about? For starters, it allows you to dream. And so when we stepped into the role, there was not necessarily, there were some dreams. There were dreams, but they were like here. Yeah, they were the dreams.
They were a dream. Whereas now we can actually, and we're taking steps on the pathway to seeing those dreams come to pass, and some of them have happened already. And so we can put resources towards them. We can stick finances and go, you know what? Okay, to be involved in the Kimberley next year, it might be let's say that's going to cost us 20 grand, if you like. Have we got 20 grand to do it? Yes, we have. Do we feel called to do it? Yes, we do. Are we going to do it? Yes, we are.
Yes.
And so when you want to step into those spaces, we can do so with some surety and clarity. And that has probably not happened for the organisation before.
And it's just so remarkable because, like with charities and non-profits, you always feel like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, you feel like there's a sense of, I'm asking you for a favor all the time, or is like patting on the shoulder, just help us out, we're non-profit and whatnot. And just to what you said, like we now have the resources to say yes to things with confidence. it's just a great feeling.
Well, as I said earlier, Alex, relationship is king. And while we think fundraising is, or we can be tempted to think it is just about money, I think it's actually about relationships. And in the correct spaces, finances do follow. So, you know, one of the things that we do is we raffle Harley Davidson motorbikes. And that, on the surface, you go, isn't connected actually to Southern Cross Kids Camps.
Some would say it's quite off-brand as well.
But some great friends of ours do that for us. And, you know, we always try and have the best people represent Southern Cross, and they're the best. Marcy Meyer, just her ability to connect with people on social media is phenomenal. Like, she just does an incredible job.
And that campaign in particular obviously is not only the Harley bikes. You've got, you know, performance push bikes and you know, some other stuff, trucks and things, you know, coming up. I want you to speak into that mentality a little bit, because usually with charities or any sort of organization, when they do fundraising, they make a big deal out of their own organization and the people that they're helping and whatnot, which is all fantastic. But you guys have sort of taken up that mindset of, for people who put $20 into for a Harley bike, in my words, they couldn't care less about what you guys do with the money, or, you know, they probably have very little, you know, they don't think about the kids that you guys are helping, right? And they just want to get the bike. Right?
Yeah, they do.
For an organization like you, how do you have that mindset shift where you say, okay, we're just going to bite the bullet and do this without mentioning a lot about what we do, and that's completely okay, right? Speak into that a little bit.
I think there's probably a couple of things. You have to have your fundraising come from way outside just your immediate circle. And I think that's one of the transitions that we've managed to do at Southern Cross. Because that's what happens when an organisation starts. You get all your friends together, you see if you can do it, and you see if you can fund it. And if you don't break that mould, you will stay probably well short of what you might dream the organisation has to offer. So we've managed to do that. And the other bit is that, and we've learnt this from you, is I continually ask myself, who's the hero in the story?
Right.
Because if we make ourselves the hero of the story, or worse still, Sandy and myself the hero of the story, it's just, well, for a start, it's awful.
That is amazing.
And it's not true. But all the people who fund what we do, for example, in that fundraising setting, they're the complete heroes of the story.
Yes.
Because if it wasn't for them, we would not get to work with those kids in outback Indigenous settings, or even in our local communities. It wouldn't happen. That
is amazing. So what other raffles do you have coming up other than the Harley bikes and performance bikes?
So one of the things that we've started to do is just we've got made available for every camp the opportunity, just for their team members or family members, people associated with that camp, to make a monthly donation, $5, $10. Some people choose to do like $100 or whatever, but it is interesting that as the organisation grows, there is still that opportunity, obviously, to do what was probably the more traditional way, but in a new way. Just to do that online regular donation. So each camp has its own sort of family, if you like, that invests into it financially and supports it, and that's just continuing to grow and do really well. And the camps that have promoted that well, they're smashing it.
Okay. That's amazing. So obviously, how you run the organisation, you've got the head office that provides all the support and training and leadership and whatnot. Do you guys fund the individual camps out of head office, or how does that work?
So we do help fund some of what the camps do, but those amazing camp directors who run our camps actually sign up to also fundraise for their own camps. And then they get a lot of their own volunteers to help fundraise as well. So they'll run all sorts of different events, and it might be some of the old school type things like trivia nights, one lot do a gala ball every year.
Yeah.
Actually, there's 2 camps come together to run that, which is a huge event that they pull off. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do that this year. But yeah, they come up with car boot sales, all sorts of things that they come, one does a carnival day. So they come up with all these creative ideas depending on what part of the country they're from. And lots of Bunnings sausage sizzles around the country. And all to help put on their own camp for these kids, because we don't charge the kids or the leaders to come on our camp.
So would it be fair to say that these camps are actually designed to be self-sustainable?
Yeah, they are. You know, we want to have that model so it's not just up to the National Office to raise all the money, because that would put a ceiling on what we do. So, as Sandy, you know, said, the camps take on a great deal of work in raising funds. You know, from time to time we can help out as National Office, and once again, that's one of the things that we've been able to do. But we want to be able to do that, but we also need the majority of the responsibility to align with the camps.
And what makes these leaders to actually take the initiatives or be self-motivated to put up a show and raise all these funds?
Well, inevitably the leaders have incredible passion for the kids and the communities they serve. Because if we don't have that, you know, if we can't answer the why question of why we're doing this, it's not going to happen. So they've got that burning in their hearts that, you know, to not do this would be a tragedy for the kids of their community. And so that's very highly motivating.
Right. So it has certainly been a privilege to help you guys with your websites, your online donation tools, obviously running the raffles and Facebook ads and all the bells and whistles stuff, right? I want you guys to give me an honest opinion or comment on your overall C# experience in the last 5-6 years.
Like, there's so much to take in that first day, I remember. And I remember you wrote stuff up on the whiteboard, and it actually started to make me, and no doubt Sandy as well, expand our horizons. And what I thought was going to be a technical conversation, which I would have felt completely out of my depth in, it actually turned into a culture conversation.
Right. Yes.
Which changed the organisation.
Yes.
And so what you have done, what C# has done, is helped us think about what we need to think about. And and helped us work some of those steps out, by the way. And then had the technical expertise to get us there. And that is incredible.
And that is why this relationship is so beautiful, because we know that, and frankly, obviously we're putting in a lot of extra work and extra conversations and whatnot, but that's not the point. The point is this relationship is so beautiful because we are fueling a cultural shift within an organization, and as a result, we get to help so many more people, and the organizations take into the next. Now, finally, what's the future for Southern Cross Kids Camp?
We're excited for the future. We're excited that we're on the back end of coronavirus from an Australian perspective anyway. So we get back to doing, running those camps for the kids who really need it most.
That is amazing.
And continued expansion in what we do. We mentioned there's a couple of new camps that are coming down the line. There'll be more of that. So the future for Southern Cross is huge.
Amazing. And for you guys personally, you guys will be celebrating your 40th anniversary, am I correct?
Next year, yes.
Next year?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Do you see yourselves sort of wrapping up your careers, with Southern Cross Kids Camp?
Well, it's important that we, just on that, we're already talking to the board about what the next steps look like. Because we don't want to be the organisation that gets old and sails off into the sunset. At the moment, Sandy and I, we're stewarding that position, but it won't be forever. And we need to be, and we're talking about that now at board level of what the next iteration looks like, what our roles might look like going forward. Do we think we've got a contribution to make for a number of years? Yeah, we do. But do we need to be continuing to look how we're going to refresh the organisation We do,
That is great.
and we are going to. So that'll be coming down the line in a couple of years' time.
Awesome. But first of all, congratulations for the 40th anniversary for your wonderful marriage.
Yeah.
It's been a privilege serving you guys, and I look forward to many more years to come between this great relationship.
Yeah. Well, we're honoured to have you guys as friends and colleagues.
Yes.
And I'm just so excited to be working with my beautiful wife.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.